You know that feeling, right? You're trying to explain a complex software system and you just see your audience's eyes glaze over. Or maybe you're the one who's totally lost in a sea of confusing boxes and lines. Well, today, we're going to dive into something called the C4 model. It's this brilliantly simple way to create clear, useful maps for any software architecture. So here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with the problem that C4 was built to solve. Then I'll introduce you to the model itself, and we'll zoom through its four main levels. After that, we'll check out how it actually works in the real world, and wrap up with why this is so much more than just drawing pictures. It's really about creating a living blueprint for your system. Let's do it. Okay, first up, let's talk about a problem that pretty much every single software team runs into, and that is architectural diagrams that just don't work. I mean, this is the big question, isn't it? We have to communicate how our systems are built, but it is so easy to create diagrams that are either way too simple to be useful or just so ridiculously complex that nobody can even understand them. It's a classic trap, and we've all been there. Yeah, you've got two bad options, really. On the one hand, you have those random box and line diagrams you sketch on a whiteboard. They're fast, sure, but they end up being a total mess, inconsistent, confusing, and impossible to maintain. Then, on the other extreme, you have formal stuff like UML. And with, 14 different diagram types, the learning curve is insane. They just end up becoming these outdated artifacts that nobody ever looks at. So what's the solution? Well, this is exactly where the C4 model comes into play. It was designed from the ground up to fix this communication breakdown by giving us all a lightweight, really developer-friendly way to do things. At its core, the C4 model is just a simple way to visualize software architecture. And honestly, the best way to think about it is like a set of maps for your code. You know, kind of like Google Maps. It lets you zoom in and out to get the perfect level of detail for whoever you're talking to. So this model was created by a software architect named Simon Brown, way back between 2006 and 2011. But what's really interesting is how it's just exploded in popularity recently. As our systems get more and more complex, teams are desperate for a more agile way to document them, and C4 is just filling that need perfectly. All right, now let's get into the heart of the C4 model, the four hierarchical levels that give it its name and its power. The four C's stand for context, containers, components, and code. I want you to think of this like a journey. We're going to start with a high-level satellite view and zoom all the way down to a street-level view of our architecture. Each level answers a different question for a different kind of audience. So we start at level 1, the system context diagram. This is that 10,000-foot view. Our entire system is just that one box in the middle. And all we show around it are the key users, like an admin, and the other major systems it talks to, like Twitter or GitHub. This view is absolutely perfect for explaining the big picture to, say, your project managers or other non-technical folk. Okay, now let's zoom in. Welcome to level 2, the container diagram. We're basically looking inside that system box from the last slide. Now, a quick heads up. A container in C4 isn't just about Docker. It's any deployable thing, like a web application, a database, or a mobile app. Here, you start to see the major tech choices and how these big pieces connect to each other. Zooming in one more time, we hit level 3, the component diagram. Here, we're focusing on just one of those containers from the previous level. This view breaks it open and shows its key internal parts, its modules, and how they relate. This is the level where the developers who are actually building this service are going to live. So what about that fourth C, code? Well, this is a really crucial piece of advice from the creator himself. Simon Brown says, you know what? You can often just automate these level 3 diagrams, and level 4, which would be something like a class diagram, you probably don't even need it. The goal here isn't to diagram every single line of code. It's to give just enough detail to be useful and no more. Okay, so we've seen the theory. Now let's zoom back out and talk about how C4 actually stacks up in the real world. And, maybe more importantly, some common mistakes you'll want to avoid. When you put C4 right next to an older standard like UML, the story is pretty clear. C4 is built for speed, it has a really low learning curve, and its entire focus is on clear communication. And you can see the trend lines, right? C4's popularity is on the rise because the industry is moving towards more practical, lightweight ways of doing things. Now, to help you get started on the right foot, let's look at some common pitfalls. The biggest one by far is confusing deployable containers with internal code components. Just remember, that's the difference between a whole database server and a single class in your app. Also, the colors and shapes are just suggestions. C4 is notation independent. And crucially, these diagrams show the static structure, the what, not the why or the how. And you might be wondering, hey, what about microservices? Well, C4 handles them perfectly. The secret is thinking about ownership. If one team owns a bunch of microservices, you can model them as containers inside one system. But if different teams own each one, it's probably better to treat each microservice as its own separate system. It's that kind of flexibility that makes C4 so useful. All right, finally, let's talk about the biggest idea behind C4. This isn't really about just drawing pictures. It's about building a true model of your system. This is such a critical distinction. Most of the time, we're just diagramming. We're making these one-off sketches, like on a napkin. They're disposable. C4 pushes us towards modeling. This is where you define all your pieces, your systems, your containers, your components, just once, in a single source of truth. Then you can generate all the different views from that model. If you change a name in one spot, it updates everywhere. It's so powerful. And this is how you get to the real payoff. When you treat your architecture like a model, you create a shared language that everyone gets, from product managers all the way to junior developers. Onboarding new people gets way faster, collaboration is easier, and your documentation becomes this living, breathing, useful thing, not some dusty file that everyone's afraid to touch. Look, the C4 model gives you the tools to create that shared understanding. It offers a really clear, pragmatic way to turn architectural chaos into clarity. So the question I want to leave you with is this: what would your project's map look like? And who could you help guide with it?